Here's another segment of our online chat with FHP President Bill Smith. I am Matt Puckett. I'm the Executive Director of the Florida PBA, and we are answering questions that have been posed to us in a number of different forums about a number of different issues related to the FHP. Bill, you had the chance, I guess, to speak with the command when they were selecting the charger. Could you kind of walk us through that process? What involvement you had, what involvement the chapter had, and why the charger was selected?
Well, we'll go a little farther back to when Colonel Knight was a colonel. When he was a colonel, that's about the time that the charger was introduced, and he did not want to buy any of them because they wouldn't do what Ford did, which was rear-end crash test them. Because we all know, we've seen the results of what happened when you have a major rear-end collision with a Crown Vic. That usually goes to a fire. We've lost 6 officers in the state that way, and there's been 30 nationwide. So the patrol but the problem was from about 02, 01, the latter part of 01 to 06, I think, is when the charger was introduced. There was no competition. It was just a Ford Crown Vic. So about the time that we came back in as the union was 06, the Colonel Knight was still the colonel, and he wasn't going to buy any of those. September, October of 07, when Colonel Knight left the organization and Colonel Zernis came in, he made the decision to buy chargers because they needed something, because a fleet was getting old and they really wanted to move away from Crown Vics, which we were all for. Again, we had just kind of gotten back into the union, the PBA. We had just come back in. So we didn't have our safety committee that first year, but we did have it the second year, but we had already purchased some chargers. We had our safety committee meeting, which consisted of troopers from around the state, some 3 board members, myself, Dennis Hobbs, who's the executive vice president, and Kevin Brown, who at the time of the meeting was the troop director for Troop D Orlando. Also, Joe Mosca sat on that board, and then there was a couple other people from around the state. Lieutenant Colonel Ernie Duarte presided over the meeting. Kenny Spears was there, Captain Spears, who was in charge of purchasing of vehicles. And we went through the process. I asked them about why the charger, and it was the only one that they provided. So they wanted to get I had to agree to move away from the Crown Vic. I wish they had crash tested the charger like Ford had done. Unfortunately, we found out the hard way. At least they don't catch on fire. We had a trooper just last week get involved in a major rear-end collision up in Broward, where she was hit at probably somewhere around the 100-mile-an-hour range, sitting still in the inside median with a pickup truck. It was a little bit of an offset, just like they tested Crown Vics. I would rather test an unoccupied vehicle, but in this case, she was there. She ended up with a broken arm, some broken ribs, but no fire. So that's a good thing. So when we sat on the board, we brought up some concerns about the charger. The glass area, now the new ones are a little different. The first ones that came out, the area of the glass, in other words, where you see out, was a little less. That was a concern of ours because of lighting. Colonel Zernis made the decision that they weren't going to have any unmarked cars anymore. Everything was going to have as much lights on it as they could.
Okay, let's take a pause right here. We're about to run out of time on our podcast. Let's pick right back up where keep your thought. We'll start a new round and you can finish this.